Hello! Today I'm going to be talking about card advantage and tempo in the new Blizzard game Hearthstone. Card advantage, or as Trump likes to call it, value, and tempo are core concepts to any collectible card game. And so these ideas have been extensively covered in the past, especially with regards to Magic the Gathering, but I wanted to put them into a Hearthstone context and look at them with Hearthstone's specific examples. Card advantage and tempo are in some ways opposite, but they're also complementary, and their understanding them is a key to a deeper theoretical understanding of the game. And if you've lost a game where you ran out of cards, and your opponent still had a loaded hand, you need to look at how you lost card advantage. If you lost a game while you still had 6 cards in your hand, but you died, you need to look at how you lost tempo. So let's start with card advantage, because it's a more straightforward concept. Each player is constrained by the rules to start with X number of cards, so 4 cards if you're first, or 5 cards if you're second, and then you'll only draw 1 card per turn after that. And so basically card advantage is when you manage to get more cards than your opponent. And you can monitor this during the game by counting how many cards they have in their hand plus on the board compared to you. And so, you know, if they have 3 cards on the board and 2 in their hand, and you have 4 cards on the board and 3 in your hand, then you have card advantage. And this happens in a couple ways. First and most basic way are cards that make you draw more cards. Arcane Intellect is a perfect example of this. So you use this 1 card and you draw 2 cards, so you gain plus 1 card. Other examples are Nourish, Sprint, Mana-Tide Totem, Life Tap, the Warlock Hero Power. Really, most anything that makes you draw is going to give you card advantage. The second way to gain card advantage is to make your opponent expend cards faster than you are. You most often see this when they need 2 or more cards to deal with one of your cards. So a large creature can kill multiple smaller creatures, and boom, you have card advantage. Weapons can usually kill multiple creatures. Hero powers, you can kill creatures with hero powers, and they don't require you to use a card, so that's card advantage. So like using Fire Blast or Wicked Blade to 1 HP minion. Minion buffs are also a source of card advantage, or actually rather disadvantage. Because often in Magic the Gathering these are frowned upon, because if you play like a Blessing of Might on one of your creatures, and then that creature is killed by a single enemy minion, you've just lost 2 cards and they've only lost 1 card. Though there are a lot of buffs in Hearthstone that are very good, like Blessing of Kings, which are so powerful that it outweighs this disadvantage. So basically, if card advantage is good, and you can get card advantage, one way to get card advantage is by having big creatures that kill multiple smaller creatures, why can't I just make a whole deck of huge beefy creatures? The answer to that is because of tempo. Tempo is related to time. Tempo, temporal, tick-tock. Every Hearthstone game has a limited time span, and someone will eventually run out of life and die. So time in the game is broken down into turns, and you can define tempo a lot of ways, but basically it means how well and how efficiently you use the turns that you have, and how much you get done in those turns. So let's go back and look at Arcane Intellect for a second, the card advantage card. So you spend 1 card and you get 2 cards, but you also spent 3 mana. So if you did that on turn 3, for example, that's your only play for the whole turn. You didn't actually get anything done, like the board position is not impacted, you didn't get any minions out. And so while you gain card advantage, if your opponent then takes their turn 3 and plays like a Raging Worgen, you've lost tempo. And so how much you get done in 1 turn is limited by how much mana you have. And so using your mana efficiently and fully every turn usually gives you a tempo advantage. This is why that all beefy creature deck wouldn't work, because for the first few turns you wouldn't have anything to do really except for your hero power, which wouldn't be an efficient way to use those turns. And that's what I meant when I said tempo is often opposed to card advantage. So hero powers can give you card advantage, but they generally do things inefficiently. So Fire Blast, if you kill a 1 HP minion with Fire Blast, you spent 2 mana on it. It's 1 damage for 2 mana, but the standard really for a card is 2 damage for 1 mana. So Fire Blast is a very inefficient way to do that. And a classic tempo card is Sap. In Magic Lego this is a bounce quote-unquote card. And Sap will return an enemy minion to their hand. And so you spend a card, but the opponent doesn't actually lose the minion. They can just replay it again next turn. And so you're giving yourself card disadvantage. But it is inefficient for them to play something twice, especially with a more expensive minion, so they lose tempo. So you're basically giving up card advantage to gain tempo with Sap. Other cards that fall into this sort of group are Vanish, Frost Nova, and Freezing Trap. Another important aspect of tempo is your hit points. The game ends when you run out of life, so in a sense it represents how much time you have left. And if you're taking away their hit points faster than they're taking away yours, that means you have a tempo advantage. They have less time than you do. And to explore these concepts further, let's think about a classic archetype matchup, aggro versus control. And so aggro or an aggressive deck is focused on winning with tempo, and control is focused on winning with card advantage. So let's say it's a Murloc aggro deck versus a Jaina control deck. The Murlocs will come out really fast and strong in the beginning. The Jaina, on the other hand, may just spend the first couple turns fire blasting 1 HP Murlocs. This is going to get her card advantage, but her HP is also going to be going down as the Murlocs beat on her. The Murloc deck doesn't really care about losing card advantage, only about using each turn in the most efficient to deal the most efficient amount of damage possible to get a really fast kill. And then if the Murlocs don't kill in time, and Jaina gets to turn 7 for a big Flame Strike that kills 4 Murlocs at once, you know, you've spent 1 card Flame Strike to kill 4 Murloc cards, you've gained a dominating edging card advantage that will likely win the control deck the game. And so while decks are often focused on being good at one of these, either tempo or card advantage, if you ignore either of them, it'll doom you to failure. So in the previous example of Jaina control versus the Murloc deck, to get to turn 7 alive, Jaina probably has to actually give up optimal card advantage plays, so she doesn't fall too far behind on tempo. So maybe she has to Cone of Cold some minions without actually killing anything, so she spends the Cone of Cold card without removing any opponent cards, just to slow them down. Or maybe she just had to play a taunt that gets murdered immediately, just to slow down the Murlocs, to get to turn 7 to get that card advantage from the Flame Strike. And on the other side, the Murlocs can't afford to be stupid about card advantage, so if you suicide 3 of your Murlocs into a I don't know, a Chillwind Yeti or something, you know, you're not going to win the game probably. Alright, it's time for a quiz, using this information that we've gained. So I'm going to show you guys a card, and you're going to decide whether it is a card that serves card advantage or serves tempo. So we're going to start off with Naturalize from the Druid. So Naturalize, for 1 mana, you destroy a minion and your opponent draws 2 cards. So what really probably gives us away really easily is that your opponent is drawing 2 cards. You know, that's terrible for cards. It's card disadvantage for you. You know, you're spending 1 card and your opponent is is losing 1 card by getting 2 cards. So it's definitely a tempo card, and it's a good tempo card because usually, remember, tempo is about how efficiently you expend your mana and how much you get done in every turn. So to destroy a creature for 1 mana is actually really good because the standard for this, like the Rogue Assassinate, is 5 mana. So you could take 1 mana to destroy that creature, and then the rest of the mana on that turn to do other, important game-altering things. And so this is great in an aggressive deck, to kill maybe like that final big taunt creature that's standing between you and victory. And the opponent draws 2 cards, but they won't have time to go play them before you win. Next up, we're going to talk about Arcane Explosion. So, Arcane Explosion, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions for 2 mana. So, usually area effect cards are card advantage cards, because you're hoping that by playing this 1 card, you're going to kill multiple enemy minions. So, you play 1 Arcane Explosion and you kill 2 Murlocs, for example. Though that's not always strictly true. For example, the Mage has some nice area effect cards that can also be used as tempo cards. So the ones that freeze, which is Cone of Cold and Blizzard. And so while usually area effect equals card advantage, they can also help with tempo in some cases. Moving on, we're going to go to Paladin and look at Holy Light. Holy Light, 2 mana, restores 6 health. This is a tempo card, because remember that one of the tempo resources is your health, which is how much time you have left to do things. So you're giving yourself 6 more health, you're giving yourself more time. However, cards that only heal yourself are generally, in card games, looked upon as bad, because it's often better to gain tempo by damaging your enemy or disrupting your enemy than it is to heal yourself. However, cards that heal yourself can also be indirect card advantage, so if someone, say, spends 2 Sinister Strikes on you to deal 6 damage, and then you play Holy Light, you're going to undo all of their work with only 1 card, and you're going to gain 1 card advantage. You can also use this, you can also be neutral in terms of card advantage, if you heal a creature that allows your creature to kill another creature that it otherwise wouldn't have been able to without dying. So you kind of break even card advantage with it in that respect. Next card we're going to look at is Arathi Weaponsmith. So this is a 3/3 for 4 mana, but when this battle cry is equipped, you equip a 2/2 weapon. So usually things associated with weapons mean card advantage. So a 3/3 for 4 mana is pretty crappy. It's not a very efficient creature to play with your 4 mana. But getting the 2/2 weapon means this 3/3 can probably kill one creature, then your 2/2 weapon can kill another creature, or maybe even 2 creatures. So you might even get, 2 or 3 opponent cards just for playing this one card. So it's very likely to give you card advantage. But the interesting thing about weapons in this game, and one of the reasons is they're so good in Hearthstone, is because they definitely give you card advantage, but they can also give you tempo advantage, because they deal damage pretty efficiently. So this 2/2 weapon, even if you're just using it to attack their hero, that's 4 damage to their hero. So you get a 3/3 and 4 damage to your hero for 4 mana, which actually really isn't bad. Or like Doomhammer, for example, you're spending like 7 mana, but you end up dealing, even if you're only attacking your hero, you deal 16 damage to their hero for 1 card. And then last but not least, we're going to go to Rogue. And look at this guy. So Defias Ringleader, 2 mana for 2/3 combo, summon a 2/1 Defias Bandit. Does this card serve tempo or card advantage? And that is a trick question, because the town that they are talking about is both tempo town and value town. Scrub. That's one of the reasons. That is probably the reason Defias Ringleader is so goddamn strong, is because it helps both tempo and card advantage. So for tempo, on the first turn they're getting out 4 total attack and 4 total hit points. And that's a really, really efficient way to use your first turn. And you're going to get damage on them really fast, start that clock ticking for them. And then on the card advantage front, they're probably going to need 2 cards to deal with this 1 card, so it also generates card advantage. And so that's why Defias Ringleader is one of the most, or Coin Defias Ringleader rather, is one of the most overpowered turn 1 plays in the game. So now that we know what card advantage and tempo are, how do you incorporate them into your gameplay? And how do they help you? Well, I think most people intuitively understand these concepts to some extent, and they deploy them when they're playing, when they're building decks. But I think it's nice to have a firm grasp on exactly what you're doing. I think it kind of could help take your play to the next level. And so when you're building a deck, you obviously want to think about these things, and you want to think about kind of which direction your deck is going in. So there's 3 basic deck archetypes in card games, or at least in Magic the Gathering. There's control, there's aggro aggressive decks, and there's combo. In Hearthstone, combo is not so prevalent, so usually they're thinking about whether you're a control deck or you're an aggressive deck. And so you're in an aggressive deck, you're going to kind of be wanting to look at things that are going to help you with tempo, and in a control deck, you're looking at things that want to help you with card advantage. But you can't, like I said before, you can't ignore one is in favor of the other. So a control deck will still need some tempo cards to stay alive to get to that Flame Strike or whatever, and an aggro deck will probably still need some cards to generate card advantage. So for example, I think Kripparrian in a recent tournament played a Divine Favor aggressive Paladin deck. So it had a lot of very inexpensive cheap creatures, and he would play out all of his hand and then Divine Favor for a really big draw. You could draw 3 or 4 cards on Divine Favor. And so it's an aggro deck, but it had that Divine Favor to give him card advantage to help balance the deck out and make it stronger. In Arena, it's harder to get a very focused or themed deck, but you can still look at your deck and kind of see what you've got so far and kind of what direction your deck is going in, or what your deck is weak at. And so, if you have a very aggressive deck so far and you see a sap, you're like, okay, maybe I can use a sap to kind of bounce that one last taunt that's standing in the way of victory, and it's going to be great. Or you can look at your deck and say, oh well, I have a really slow deck. I'm going to end up winning with card advantage, and not so much killing someone on turn 6 or turn 7. And so if I play that sap, they're just going to replay the creature, and it's going to be a loss of card advantage for me. And so, you kind of want to evaluate it based on the context of your deck. Within the game, it's obviously very important to keep these 2 concepts in mind. If you make bad trades, you screw your math up, you're going to lose more minions than your opponent, and it's going to be card disadvantage, and it's going to grind you down and cause you to lose the game. But on the other hand, if you focus too much on being hyper efficient, like you just keep on spending your hero power in turn 2, 3, or 4, killing these 1 HP minions, and not developing your board position, you're going to fall behind on tempo, and you can probably lose that way too. So you gained all this card advantage, but then you die with 6 cards in your hand, and those cards didn't help you. So you really got to pay attention to both of these things while you're playing the game. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm going to be doing more of these YouTube videos about Hearthstone, talking about decks, cards, strategies, arena, theory crafting in general. And yep, goodbye.